Oh, we're live.
Yeah, I know. Oh, hold on. That's the wrong one. Anyway, this is not spontaneous combustion. Apparently, hey, this is live. That's the nature of live, right? So that was my other show. How embarrassing. So this is Psych You In, and with my co-host, Nat, and our guest today, Brother Mike, or Mike Dillard, or Michael Dillard. And guess what? Some of the things, I don't know why, but this finger here, press I. So some of the announcements might say Michael Dilliard. I apologize for that.
Okay.
Okay. That was a good start.
Yes. Just let's say that. There's no I in Dillard. Anyway. Oh, I'm going to go to chat just to see if anybody's here. So no one's here yet. So we'll just keep going.
Well, it's recording anyway, so.
Oh, I know.
Thank you super much for being our first guest. So
yeah.
We know you through this
the initial guest on Psych You In.
Yes, that was a background voice, Psych You In.
Oh yeah. No, I'm super excited. I mean, I love both of y'all, right? I mean, you're two of my favorite people, not just on LinkedIn, but in the world, right? So I'm super glad to reconnect, and especially in this way, it's an honor, right? So yeah, any help y'all need from me, you got it, right, for life. So thank you.
I almost look like I was giving myself CPR. No, really, thank you for being here too. Yeah.
Now, since we live in this pandemic world, so I'm learning new sort of like language science. This is the heart, and this is like a virtual hug.
Mm-hmm.
So you see when you can't see people in real life. But anyway, Michael, so obviously biggest question also, when we've been on this training with Shani, so do you remember you had one of those super great inspirational posts which just fired up, and went viral? And obviously it's like super inspirational story. Do you want to share a little bit with us?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So I didn't plan. I mean, I guess when somebody goes viral, you never plan on going viral, but I was just basically talking about my life and how my life has changed the trajectory, right? So in 1994, I was 24 years old, and I was in a very, very toxic relationship, which resulted in me and that particular person split ways. We were still married, but we separated. And so it was just me and my 1-year-old daughter, Isis, right? So basically, I was homeless. I didn't have any money. And, I'm trying to feed my daughter. So, I mean, like before I had my daughter and I was broke, I mean, I could like spend $2 on Jack in the Box, and you could get like 2 tacos or 2 hamburgers, right? And, and that would last me, like I could go 2 days for that, but as a grown man, but you got a little baby, you can't do that with a little baby. You have to feed the baby. So it got to a point to where what I had to do, I didn't know what else to do. Somebody told me that, oh, you can sell plasma. Like you go down, they'll take blood out of you and then they'll make plasma and they'll give you some money. It may be like $50 or $75.
I did that once.
I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I honestly felt very ashamed to do it. I felt ashamed to do that because I have this thing about needles, like, people using drugs and needles. So I know I wasn't doing drugs, but it just kind of made me think about that. Well, I'm selling my body fluids to get money, but that was the best I could do at the time to buy food for my daughter. And then eventually me and her mother got back together, and then things were bad again. And I said, I just need a job. God, I'll take any job. So I read in the newspaper there was a job for a bread truck driver. I'm like, I'll take any job. So I went and applied for the job. I didn't even have the right license, honestly. So while I'm waiting, there was a guy from the competitor bread company. He had a license. That was his job. And the company hired me over that guy. He gave me the job.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome.
That's God, right? But I was to be honest, I was a lousy bread truck driver. Okay. I sideswipe people's cars. Sorry, leave a note or whatever. I mean, I was always late getting the bread there. I was not a good bread truck driver.
Was this in Hawaii?
So that's in Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, all local drivers sideswipe each other, so you're cool.
Oh, thank you. Now I feel better about that.
Shaka.
I was just an average driver. I was an average driver, right? I wasn't a bad driver. I was an average driver. But what ended up happening was one night, you're supposed to deliver bread early in the morning. Sorry, I'm not sitting on my camera. You're supposed to deliver bread early in the morning. So what I would do, because my car got impounded, I lost my car. I owned the car and I got all these traffic tickets. I couldn't pay it. They took the car. It was gone. So what I had to do is catch the bus. I would catch the very last bus from where I lived in Honolulu. It was maybe like 11:30 at night. And I get to the bread company maybe like almost 1 in the morning. And then I would sleep in the break room until like 3 in the morning when everybody else came to work. I wake up, they load my truck, and then I go deliver bread, go home, play with my daughter for like 2 hours, go to bed, and then start it all over again. That was my life. And I remember on this one day, it was my 25th birthday, and things was really, really bad. And I was driving a bread truck at night, and then I heard a thought that said, I could see me doing this for the rest of my life. To take care of my family, I could do that. And then like I heard it. I heard what I heard the thought, and then I heard what I said in agreement with that. And I snapped. I had a mental breakdown in the truck, a nervous breakdown. And I kept driving. So I'm driving like 70 miles an hour, and I'm screaming furiously at the top of my lungs, no, this is not my life. This cannot be my life. Like just all dramatic, right? Shakespearean and crying. And I was like, God, I'll do anything, but this is not my life. Like, I know I'm supposed to do something way greater than this. Like, there's nothing wrong with, if you're a bread truck driver, I'm not, dishing on you. There's nothing wrong with that. But I know on the inside, like I'm supposed to do something different. And I was about to settle. And that's why I started screaming, because I felt like I had just died so much, so slowly over time, over the years, until I just said, you know what, whatever. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And then I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm about to die. Like, in a sense, I'm about to die. I'm about to throw away who I believe I am since I was a little kid and just settle into this role. And that's why I started screaming. So anyway, after that, a couple of days later, a friend of mine at that job he literally just out the blue gave me some Tony Robbins tapes. And not that I advocate for everything that Tony Robbins does nowadays, but back then, I had never heard that you could control your mind. I didn't know that. I just thought, you feel how you feel and whatever happens, happens. And then I started listening to those tapes. And I still remember the music. It was like, it was like going on a great adventure. So I would be driving a bread truck, playing these Tony Robbins tapes, teaching me how to program my mind. And then like after that, like everything changed. Why? Because, well, one, I was still praying to God. And I believe God is the person that actually gave me those tapes, because he understood. Like, you can pray, but if your thinking is all messed up, your situation's not going to change. So like one of my favorite sayings is, change your mindset, change your money. I always say it 3 times. Change your mindset, change your money, change your mindset, change your money, change your mindset, change your money. That's how it is. So when I got those tapes, I started changing my mindset. I started looking at things differently, believing differently about myself. And I started taking bold actions. And my life, it seemed like it changed overnight. I mean, it took time, but it really seemed like it changed overnight. So this is like the perfect venue to talk with you, huh? Yeah, the mind.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say one. I was just going to do a joke, because I do that. But 2 things we were talking about. One, Brother Mike, one of the people that is your major heroes in your life, he did a little something with loaves of bread, didn't he? And
that's true. That's
so
that's a good point.
Nothing against bread drivers. I used to drive a truck for laundry. And then the second thing, you ever heard the joke about the guy who so there's like a flood. I don't know if it's New Orleans or whatever. So it's a flood, and people are warning him, there's a flood, there's a flood, there's a flood. He's like, okay, I'm going to bag my house. He bags his house. The water comes over there. Then it gets higher. And then finally he like goes to his roof. And then like a lady comes by in a rowboat and goes, hey, you want to ride? I can get you out of here. And he's like, no, I'm praying to God. God's going to save me. And then he goes by. Then a helicopter comes by, sir, we can pick you up and rescue. Do you want to be rescued? And he's like, no, God's going to come. And then time goes by, days go by. 3 other people come by that can save him. He doesn't do it. The flood comes him and he dies. He's at the pearly gates. And he like goes, hey, I got a beef with you, God. I'm praying to you, and here I am dead. He goes, what do you want? I sent you a boat, a helicopter, another boat. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's kind of like in line with what you're saying. You prayed and you got Tony Robbins saved. So by the way, we have an audience of at least 6. I don't know why they're not showing up on the count. So that's cool. Rob's here, Mama Epps is here, Lolo's here. Oh, excuse me, Lois is here. I don't know if everybody calls her Lolo. I do. And then Juana's here, and Sandy Doyle, an old friend of mine. That's pretty awesome. Is here. So anyway,
aloha.
Shaka and aloha.
Shaka
Brother Mike's from Hawaii, so he taught me the shaka.
Jokes aside, that's about brain, not about jokes. So jokes.
I know. Go ahead. You take it. I'm the color commentator. You're the serious person. I will be quiet now.
Yes. Now we're gonna go into a difficult question, right? So, okay, Michael's preparing. So, you said actually, that you lost that. I mean, have you always felt, that you are destined for something more? I mean, we'll talk obviously about your current state, because obviously right now you're very successful, and you have companies and successful businesses, But back in time, like
5 companies.
5
That's
companies.
something.
Sorry,
It's something.
companies.
Go ahead.
So, but like back in time, have you always felt, this like higher calling, or have you always felt that you are predestined, for more? Have you always felt, this passion for life? And what did happen to you actually? Because obviously you could not just lose it in a year. I mean, I understand obviously that you've gone through all this difficulty in relationship with your wife, about your daughter and about your relationship with her, but it probably didn't happen just between 24 to 25 years old, right? It probably something like, so how did it happen, from you being happy child who kind of knew that he can achieve a lot, what sort of made you to kind of gradually go down, to a point when you had this mental breakdown?
That's a very good question. I'm so glad you asked it, because people it's not. People always want to glorify somebody else. They see this person in the spotlight. It's like, you don't understand what went into that person. So I always like to I unpack it, right? So to answer your first question, yes, as a child, I always believed that. So I used to fancy myself. I would say, oh, like I'm a long lost heir of an African kingdom. I'm a young prince, and I'm gonna be an African king one day. So it's like, reading the comic books and looking at Black Panther, it's like that. It's like, I'm like T'Challa, like I'm gonna be king one day, right? So that's what I always believed on the inside of me. So I tried to carry myself like that. Now, how did I go down? So I went down because I started looking at other people and comparing myself. Nope, got to back up. My dad was murdered. My dad was murdered when I was in the 4th grade. So out of that, even though I was believing I was meant for great things, but I kind of adopted a certain fear-based mindset. I mean, the protector of the family was just murdered. He's gone. He was murdered, right? So fear comes in, it grips the household, and it affects everyone differently. So for me, I had like this odd dichotomy where I knew I was smart, I knew I was talented and capable, but at the same time, I was afraid to really move forward. And I stopped really believing in the individual me of me. So I started comparing myself to other people. Oh, well, this is how the other guys are acting, whereas up to a certain point, I was never acting like that. But then I said, well, I'm gonna start acting cool. I used to write poems, and then that's when rap came out. So I'm like, oh, you know what? I can rap. So I started rapping. I was a really good rapper, right? So then I tried to fit the image of a rapper, and started being cool, not paying attention in class, trying to talk to girls, cutting class. So it was like my whole direction started changing right then and there, right? So that's how I ended up in the military. I hatched a plan with 2 of my best friends on how we were going to cut school and get some food and then bring it back to this class, our calculus class, and sit in there and eat it. Because he also taught at Rutgers University. So he didn't teach us like normal kids. He's like, if you want to do this, do whatever you do. But if you get some food, just bring it back for me so I can have some food too, please. So, okay, we're going to look cool. We'll come in there, we'll eat food in this class. Here's your food too, right? So my mindset was already veered off. So when I got in the Navy, you know, in the Navy, you're on a ship. You're in the water and you have charts. A chart is a map for the water, right? But you have to understand the current is always pulling you this way or that way. So you have to keep making micro adjustments along the way. Otherwise, you're off course. So 1 degree off course, over time, you're like 200 degrees off course, right? And that's what happened with me. So that's why I'm so glad you asked the question. My mindset shifted when I was younger and it just kept shifting. I didn't adjust it. So then it affected the type of women that I interacted with, the type of people that I allowed myself to hang out with, and what I said was acceptable in my life, right? The standard, not to keep talking about, but Tony Robbins always talks about the standards. He says, you change your standards, you change your life. And that's what happened with me. So when I finally found myself in that low place and I'm hanging out with people that are, you know, their habits, whether they was drug users or drug dealers or prostitutes or pimps, is like, I found myself in a very seedy, connecting myself with a very seedy environment and telling myself it was okay. It's okay, you know, because I was accepted, I was in that thing and whatever, but that really wasn't me. But I was hurt and my mindset was off. So thus I grafted myself onto those things. And very quickly I would find myself in situations where I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I remember one time, I'm going to say this, but I remember one time this person we were dating. Then it's like, oh, you know, let's go. Would you drive me to so-and-so to get some weed? Right. And I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. Like, yeah, I'll take you and your girlfriend to go to Waikiki and get some weed. So we drive up to the house. Right. And I remember it was crazy because there was like police around and everything. And I was getting really scared. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? What am I doing? Like driving somebody to pick up drugs is like, this is not me. But I didn't stop myself. I just kept on in a relationship and this and that until it just got so bad in my life. I was at rock bottom. I was really at rock bottom, you know, eating, you know, going to a friend's house because I didn't have any food. I went to his apartment and he was almost as broke as I was. But he said, well, all I got is some stale Easter candy from last year. You can have that. And I'm like, it's better than nothing, right? So I'm eating this nasty stale Easter candy, you know, which was disgusting, but it was better than nothing. So that's the answer to your question. So it didn't just happen overnight. It was a series of decisions that was based on my mindset, which came from a hurt place. And I didn't understand that I could turn that around. Thank you, sis. Thank you, Philippa. I didn't understand that I had the power to change my mind. I just thought, you know, you feel what you feel and whatever thoughts come in your head, that's just your thoughts and that's just how it is.
But
so yeah,
question yourself is not that. It's like I was just listening to what you're sharing, you know. So it's like even through this period of time, you know, before the actual like, you know, when you had this mental breakdown and you started to go up again, you know, so you still were questioning yourself. It's like your mind was still learning itself, you know. You were still sort of asking questions internal, like, why do I do it, or why would I want to do it, or am I really doing this, you know? So it's not like you were from your mind.
I mean, it takes you to go to the bottom. I mean,
yeah.
I mean,
and it's your identity.
It's a show about neuroscience, but I mean, there's psychology in there too. I mean, it takes motivation. I mean, it takes something, even understanding the brain and making it change. You got to hit bottom sometimes. I mean, when I was a counselor for people who were had addictions, and that's it. The bottom thing, they got to get there so that they finally say, you know what, I can change my mindset to change my life, and I am bigger than whatever they're addicted to. It's a great story, though.
And it's so true. So even with what you're saying, like, you know what? You have your identity, and without going into all psychology and Freud and all of this stuff, I mean, I took it in college, but I don't actively work in it, so I don't really remember that. But my identity, who I believed I was, right? That's what kept surfacing. So it's like, it was deep enough in me who I believed that I was. A lot of people, they don't have that. A lot of people, they don't have that. You know, they grew up and they were told horrible things about themselves all their lives. That wasn't the case for me. So my mother poured into me, you know, and my brother and sister. So we believe certain things about ourselves. So then when I partnered with the other type of lifestyle, and I started putting it on more and more and more, like, kind of embracing that other lifestyle, that other identity, it was like it was like a cancer. It was like growing and suffocating the true identity. So even as that thing was suffocating the other thing, it's like, hey, this is not me. Like, what am I doing here? Why are you smoking weed? Why are you hanging out with these people? Why is there a drug dealer over? It's like, what? I didn't grow up in that. Like, what are you doing, right? So it was still coming up. But even to Mark's point, like what's like the mind, like neuroscience, right? When you believe certain things about yourself, you know, your brain releases certain chemicals and you do feel better about yourself. But it's also on the flip side. So if you're believing that you're a loser, and you're believing that you're a failure and your life is never going to get better, it's not just enough to be positive. It's not just enough to say, hey, positive thinker. There's so many layers that are going on to actually affect that and to support those new belief systems that you're a loser or you're a failure or you're never going to have these things. And those things are causing your brain to react in a certain way. It causes your body to feel a certain way. So it's like everything is shaded. Everything is colored like hopeless. And that's why I got to that point. And I'm like, I could see me just driving this bread truck for 20 years. Why? Because everything was hopeless. That's how I was seeing it through. Everything just kept failing. And it's like, well, I guess that's all I got. It's not life.
Well, you said the science about our brain as well. It's like you still had a willpower. Well, you know, my favorite joke now, right? So basically, brain is the only organ in our body actually that study itself. You know, because liver or heart, it's like never study itself, right? It doesn't matter what you do with your liver. It doesn't matter how much you're drinking or whatever. You know, liver is just never going to ask a question. Why do you do it to me? Why do I do it to myself? So it's only our brain who is actually studying itself. And you see, the bigger question as well, you say like realities, and we know this, right? Many people have traumatic experiences, and many people experience breakdown in relationships, you know, horrible work placements, etc., etc. But you know, it's about willpower. Sometimes it's about that one little step, you know, which is like baby step, which is making you internally to finally start to go up. You know, so some people can't do it, you know, so and that's probably, I'm not sure if Mark will agree with me on this or not, you know, but sometimes, for example, some of the people who are addicted, you know, to bad habits, you know, so that's why they can't change sometimes behavior, because they sort of, they don't want to do this one little step, you know, they just need to have willingness, you know, to do this one little step.
Yes.
That's why sometimes they go back to rehabs, you know, because their families or some other members, you know, they put them into rehab, you know, to change their life, you know, but they don't have this. But you had that.
Yeah, you got to disrupt. You got to disrupt.
Exactly, yeah. But you had this, right? You had this mental breakdown. But after that, something has happened again, you know, like, because obviously you had this emotional, like, moment. And after that, something has happened that, like, okay, even if I'm listening those tapes, you know, from Tony Robbins, right, I'm gonna do this one first baby step. So what was that, Michael? Because many people listen to Tony Robbins, right? Not many people change their life just because they listen to Tony Robbins.
Oh, man, Nat, you are on it. Man, you're good. You're good. Yeah. You got a good one, Mark. You got a good one, right? Okay, so so brilliant. So what I did, because he always says, Tony Robbins always says, you have to take action. Take action in the moment. Don't just listen to this tape. And he would literally say, don't just listen to this tape and do nothing. Don't do that to yourself, right? Take action. Turn this tape off right now and write down 2 things that you're going to do. Literally right now. He said, if you're driving, pull over. So I'd be like, I literally would pull over, turn off the tape. So even in that, it's like, I'm taking action. I believe that I could have a better situation because I believed what he was saying. Thus, I already started and that's what he's doing. He's having you take micro actions without you thinking about it. It's like, turn off the car, pull over, stop the tape, do it right now, write it down. You're training yourself to take action. So that's what I was doing. But the bigger thing is I decided that I was actually going to go back and start selling life insurance again. Because I told you I had sold life insurance. And then I went back to the industry. And while I was selling life insurance again, eventually I started realizing like how my life, different aspects of my life. So I was changing it. And then I met because me and that other woman got divorced. And then I met a new woman who I was married to for 23 years, a wonderful person. We're not married now, but a wonderful person. We're still business partners. But from that, I joined the Navy. So I ended up going back into the Navy. So it was those little steps. It's like, hey, listen to these tapes, write these things down. You know what? I can do it. So I shrugged that other thing off and said I couldn't do it. I was like, I can do it. I can do it. I'm going back there. I'm gonna sell insurance. I am gonna make it. I am gonna succeed. I am gonna change my life. So it's like, it just kind of, it's like they threw gas. The flame was just so tiny on the inside, but then listening to that change in my mindset, because the whole time I had been praying, right? So it's not just, the scripture says faith without deeds is dead. It's like, you can have faith, like the guy that Mark was talking about. The person had faith. Oh, God's going to save me. God's going to save me. But it's like, but he gave you some actionable things that you could have done, and you didn't do those things. So with me, in my case, was like, you need help. It's your mindset, Mike. That's what I always talk to people. It's like, your mindset matters most. Shameless plug for my weekly show, M3 Power Collapse with Mike Diller. Mindset matters most.
Yay.
But anyway,
Shaka.
it's the mindset. So I had to learn to think differently. And when I thought differently, then I took different actions. And it's like one on top of the other. So every little thing, it's just, even if you just take 2 steps every day, just 2 things, it compounds and it becomes an exponential effect, right? It's a synergy that builds. And next thing you know, you're just unstoppable. But you don't wait until you know everything. I wrote an article last year that got published. Right?
So how long
decide now.
Yeah, you can't wait until you know everything. Otherwise, you wouldn't ever do anything. That's why I don't like the oversimplification stuff, like conceive, achieve, believe. I mean, there's so much more to it than that. But that's one of the things I like about Tony Robbins, is he's action oriented. He's like, yeah, he gives you all the principles and stuff, but then, hey, you got to take action. Like that thing. Hey, pull up. If you're in the car, pull over right now. Write down 2 things. I don't care how small they are. Write them down, do them, and then that kind of gets you out of the funk.
Well, and I still, to this day, I still do that. Sorry, Nat.
No,
yeah, Nat's going to bring in limbic and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, I'm going to be a serious person. Yes.
I was serious. I just wasn't getting technical. Bring out the diagram of the brain. So right here.
If I could have some sort of like a chart behind me, I probably would draw some sort of.
Yeah, you should do that. That'd be cool on a whiteboard.
That would be cool.
Okay, in the picture, Matt will have the picture of the brain, all those hemispheres, and she'll draw on it.
I'll buy some sort of like a painting behind me, like where you can just scribble, But anyway, point being is like, so when we do action, so we actually increase trust to ourselves, and our prefrontal cortex, which is actually responsible, for all kind of executive functions, including decision making, start to learn itself and start to expand its capabilities. And we're also building trust that we can do it. And, then more you trust yourself that actually you can do it, then more decision-making capabilities you do have. But obviously it doesn't happen overnight, So Michael, coming back to your story. So you started to listen the voice of reason. Thank you, Rob. So you started to listen Tony Robbins tapes, right? And how long did it take you, like before your first micro steps, until a point when you go, okay, now I don't need these tapes, and actually I can see my life myself, and I can plan those steps myself, and I don't need the support like from the tapes anymore. I can actually do it independently, just referring to my own.
That's a good question. Well, I can tell you this. I know that within 30 days, literally within 30 days, my whole life had changed.
30 days.
Within 30 days, I was a different person. So when people were talking to me, it's like, dude, I don't even recognize you. Like, you're so different. Why? Because it's like a car engine. So it's like, you see the body of the car, it's got a jacked up engine in it. You take the engine out, put a souped up engine out. So I was a whole different man. Right. So, but honestly, I used his tapes probably for like 2 years. Not 2 years, probably like a year or so. But even just the most basic of things I could have done probably within the first month, because it's about the basics. Like once you get the basics, it's like all the other things are nuances, right? But if you got the basic steps of understanding, like, how your mind is programmed, you have certain triggers and things like that, and interrupting certain neurological patterns, and once you get that down, within the first 30 days if you're really doing it. So that's really the answer to your question. Like within the first 30 days, I already knew how to do those things. I knew how to go into my mind and look at a situation. I knew how to control it in my mind. I knew how to arrest my thoughts. I knew how to find my patterns and interrupt my pattern. And what do you mean by interrupt? So it's like something happens, it triggers you to do a particular thing. It's like Pavlovian dog, right? It's a trained response. So then you do another particular response to interrupt that other response. So when you do it enough times with enough intensity, enough frequency, it cancels out that other thing. And now you do this new thing. So within 30 days, I mean, honestly, within 30 days, anyone listening, you can change your mind. You ain't gonna be like some super guru, but you will know enough to change your mind and change your life.
So
I mean, I believe you can do that in 30 days. And thank you for noting that 30 days is a month, Matt. That was really intellectual. I like that.
He's such a wise guy. You know,
I am the wise guy. I'm the color. I'm the color commentator. I'm the comic relief, but I also am serious. So, yes, you can change your mind in 30 days and start changing. But I mean, there's massive studies about, you know, how long it takes to create a habit. So your habit won't be formed in 30 days, but you can definitely change. And the only reason I bring that up is because that's about 1/3 of my book that's coming out. If people believe Brother Mike, no one's going to buy my book. So, well, Brother Mike said, I know what he said, and he's correct. But anyway.
It is amazing, though, right? That your mind works like that. That is amazing.
No, but Michael, look, I mean, I know that people usually, when they go through such transformations, right, or when they start to tap into their cognitive abilities, usually they're actually tempted to fall back. You know, like, it's just like, you know, for example, you start to do exercise, right? You will be tempted to just like to sit down on a chair, on a couch or wherever and just relax and watch Netflix or something like this. So during that first 30 days, what did happen to you? Like, how often have you been tempted just like to sit down, give up, and like, okay, maybe it's too difficult. Maybe I'm wherever. Maybe I'm actually, no, let me just go back to like just doing some other kind of job, you know, and not to progress.
Oh, that's an easy answer. The answer is 0. So it goes back into my original belief system, right? That I'm like this mighty king. I was like, I was meant to be this. So the flame was a big flame, and then it got real small. And then when I listened to that Tony Robbins, it's like, just gasoline doused it, poof, right? So I'm like, oh, I can do it. And now I can see how to do it. So that's what was jacking me up, right? My mindset, I couldn't see how to do it. And I was believing certain negative things about myself. But then when I started understanding how the brain works, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, I built this thing. Like he always says, the table. It's like, I built the legs on this table, the legs to the belief systems, right? Boop, 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 boop. Like, I built that. I can destroy that and I can rebuild a whole brand new. Oh, I know how to do it now. So there was no temptation in my mind. That's why I literally went back to the insurance company. I was like, hey, I'm back. I'm here. I'll start on a part-time basis, but I'm back. And they're like, whoa, like what? Where are you coming from? Like, dude, what's this new fire? Right? I'm like, I'm back, right? So I had hope. I understood if I just do this, that, and this and keep doing it, basically control my mindset, control how I'm looking at things, get feedback, right? So here's my goals. I'm taking 2 steps every day. And then I look, that's not the feedback I expected. I need to modify my approach until I get the right feedback I'm looking at. And then you just keep doing that. Boom, 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 boom. So there was no days at all when I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And absolutely not. Because now I saw how to get out. I was in a prison that I couldn't see. That's the worst type of prison. I used to preach in prisons, right? And so I would tell the brothers in there, I'm like, look, you know, the worst type of prison is the prison that you cannot see. You guys can see the bars. You can see the facility. You see the guards. But a prison of the mind, a prison of the heart, a prison of the spirit, you can't see it. You can see the effects of it around you, but you can't see the bars. So when you get hope, so when I got those tapes, I had hope. I'm like, I understand there's a way to get out of this prison that I was calling my life, which was miserable. And even in that video, I said my life was hell. I hated my life. And I just knew that God had more for me. And that's why I kept going. Some people say, I hate my life and I just want to die. And then maybe they're at such a low place. They actually do that, which is, it's so devastating because it's not even a permanent solution. It's a permanent action that they took. You can't reverse that. It's like, well, you never got to see your comeback. It's like you got pushed back. Life, not life, because life comes from God. God is life. Life is not a hard thing. The world system will push you back. But if you gird up your mind, if you gird up your spirit, then what happens is you get to witness the comeback. And that's why people resonated so well with that video. It's still going viral, right? Because everyone gets pushed back during this time of COVID. We all been pushed back. And it's like, but don't give up. If you don't give up, you can come back. And it's like, boom, that's what I needed to hear, the comeback. Because I think humans, we have that innately inside of us. It's like, we're meant to be free. We're meant to take dominion and be on top. And, so something inside every human is like, I don't know how I'm going to get up. But you keep looking up. It's like, Les Brown used to say that, right? If you keep looking up, how would he say, like, if you're on your back, then you look up, right? And if you can look up, then you can get up. It's like, oh, that's brilliant. And there's so many truths that's contained in that, right? So I hope I answered your question. I know I'm kind of rambling.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Well,
you did. I mean, like when I was the 10 years I worked in a suicide hotline, that was what you were talking about. That's what we were taught to do. It's like, yeah, guess what? I mean, it was very confrontive. You actually had to ask them how they were going to do it, when they're going to do it, where they're going to do it, to see if they were serious. I mean, that's hard to do, but it does work. But then after that, after you get past that, then you try to find just one action different than suicide. It's like, what can you do now to build yourself up, no matter how small? Like get out of bed, make bed, eat a meal, go call a friend, whatever, something so small that gives you light at the end of the tunnel and keep moving forward. I mean, so that's so important.
And what's great about these live shows is that it's not scripted. So you never know which way the show is going to turn. So I see like we're taking another turn here. This is about mental health. So it's still the brain, right? It's still the brain. But
it's not even about mental health, but the bigger question.
Oh, here comes Nat.
Yes, here goes serious stuff, because Michael, you mentioned your mom and I think your brother, right, or your sister. So, and there was so basically you grew up in a supportive environment, isn't it? Even unfortunately, your dad passed away murdered when you were very young, but you grew up in this loving, supportive environment, isn't it? Because obviously you at least what I'm reflecting from you. So which means that. It's my favorite debate, about nature versus nurture, right?
Yeah, one of her core beliefs is all about parenting.
Exactly, yeah, and especially given the fact, that our brain is like, the biggest period, for our brain is first 7 years, first 3 years and up to 7 years, so that's when we develop like almost like billions of neuroprocesses in our brain, just acquiring the world around us. So, and you see, now here we go, difficult question, right? So there is you.
Because the rest were easy, so this is a hard one.
Yeah, before it was easy, right? Not difficult one. So and seriously, guys, there's a lesson coming, right? Probably from Michael. So you were a child, you grew up in a supportive environment. So and obviously before you were 3 or 7 years old, you were loved, so you were given this sense of worth, that you actually worth something in this life. You matter, because obviously you felt that you matter for someone, you make difference in someone's life. And yes, after that, something happened, maybe you were surrounded by different people, and that flame sort of started to be smaller and smaller and smaller. And once somebody gave you those Tony Robbins tapes, so that flame was reignited and you got back into feeling some of those feelings. But how about people who did not grow up like you in a supportive environment? And they did not acquire all those patterns. They did not subconsciously absorb them so that when they kind of can grow up to age of, 20 to 25, they can't take anything like what you took out of your subconscious, right, into conscious. And like, I actually have a mind. I can program my mind. I can learn it, because like underneath there subconsciously when they were children, so they did not ingrain that they matter. So what they should do, in your opinion, obviously.
You know what? And the answer, that's a great question. And the answer is so simple. It's desire. So even if they didn't have, there's so many examples in the world around us of people that, the world, quote unquote, would call a success, right? They have material wealth. They have material success. They succeeded in some areas in life, right? But what did they do? They had desire. They had desire. And so we have to look at this, right? So there is nature, there is nurture, and they both play a part. And that's why it's like saying, hey, who's better, the Democrats or the Republicans? It's like, no, it's two pieces of the same system, right? One isn't better than the other. It's like certain elements are in this party, certain elements are in this party. If you combine the whole, it's like, oh, that makes sense. So when you look at nature and nurture, there's a book. I love this book. I actually wrote a poem dedicated to this book, but it's about It's called Native Son, A Native Son by Richard Wright.
That's a great book. Yeah.
Nat, since you love nature versus nurture, you have to read this book. It's an American classic. It's amazing. You're gonna love this book. But anyway, without going into that story, right? If people did not grow up in a loving, non-toxic, I mean, my environment actually there was some toxicity, I'm not gonna front, but I was loved, right? I was loved, right? So it goes back to your desire. So what helped me, like, I had a certain belief system, but coupled with that, I had desire. So it wasn't just that, oh, my mom loved on me and told me I was great and I was so smart. I mean, like, I learned how to read, I was 3, right? You know, so people would always say, oh, you're so smart, you're this and that. It's like, yeah, that helped. But what I also had, I had desire, I had ambition. So it's like, no, I'm gonna do some great stuff. So when things would come up my way, like when I was class president for 2 years, I was class president for my sophomore and junior year. Why? I didn't even want to be class president. Some girl walked up and she was like, oh, vote for me. I kind of had an attitude back then. I was like, why would I vote for you? Why would I vote for you? You know what? I'll tell you what. I'm going to run and I'm going to beat you. I'm going to be class president.
Brother Mike.
And I did. I ran. I beat 2 years. I was. But then I was trying to be cool. And so what happened in the senior year when I went back for re-election, there's like, nah, you're not doing your job. We're going to vote for her. The other, who really, she should have been the president. But because I had that ambition and that desire, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that. Why? Because I want that. So it was that. So even if they didn't grow up in a loving environment, if they have that desire, that ambition, they will find a way. They will find a way out. And
okay,
but I mean, that's a perfect example of attitude over aptitude. I mean, come on. Like you said, she not necessarily deserved, but was more nothing personal, but competent to be the student president, and you just raw attitude. Sometimes that's all it takes. Because to me, that's a public display of your mindset, is your attitude.
Totally.
Right? It's about your ethics as well, because I mean, we all know the world, right? So there are many people that might have this desire and ambitions, you know. So, and what do they do? How do they use this? Isn't it? They don't usually use this for all good reasons for the world. I'm sorry, I'm all for good for the world. That's like bottom line, you know. And obviously, some people they don't.
Yeah, but moral, I mean, those are important, but they don't matter.
Exactly. So
my mindset doesn't matter. There's bad people and there's evil people.
Yeah. So Michael, for you, I mean, where did it came from? This moral compass?
I mean,
because you've been a rapper, right? You said you were doing all that sort of stuff when you were a teenager. At the same time, obviously, now you're hosting a podcast, you know, for Christians and for religious people. So Michael sounds like he was trouble. Exactly, Rob. That's exactly what I meant, you know. So
I'm still trouble, Rob. I'm good trouble.
Yes, but this is the question. So where that good trouble came from? It came from your childhood, because yes, you had this ambition and desire, right? But where this moral kind of like component of that came from, or from who?
Very good. And the answer is, it didn't come from my mind, right? So everybody has a moral compass. It's called a conscience. Whether you believe in God or not, you have a conscience, and the conscience is your moral compass. The problem is some people keep making decisions against that compass and they burn it out. And then there's no moral compass at all. So I was born with a moral compass, number one. And then number two, my mother grew up in the church, and she wasn't going to church at the time we were kids, but she made sure we went to church. Right.
Okay.
You train up a kid in the way they're going to go. And when they get older, you know, they'll come back to the way they originally learned. That's just how it is. It's a principle. Right. So she sent us to church, and then that helped feed the moral compass that was already built into me as a basic human. Right. So then you start learning more and more. It's like, oh, yeah. Oh, that is evil. Oh, that's why you don't. Yeah, that is. OK, got it. So that's to answer your question. I was born with it. But two, there's the nurture again. Right. I was in a household that nurtured that moral compass, that faith, that belief, right? That godliness. And she sent me to church. So I actually got baptized. I gave my life to Jesus. I was at 16. I was 16. Right? So,
well, I mean, except in extremes, though. I mean, like you were talking about, people get burned out. I mean, their moral compass gets burned out. So to me, that's a sociopath. And then there's people where they're chemically imbalanced and they're a psychopath. But those are extremes, and most people can define their morals and their moral compass and their conscience and take control of it. Most people can. You have the
Most people
ability,
can,
and that
right.
will explain how.
Yeah, so basically a question as well, so if you had this moral compass since you were a child, at the same time in your difficult years, did you turn back to that moral compass even when you had those difficult times in your life? Did it help you? Because
It
moral compass
absolutely
is also prefrontal cortex, by the way. So
It absolutely did, right? And you know why? It's their foundational beliefs. So like you was explaining that, like the most important years for a child, while that brain is forming, it's what's going in there. That is the bedrock. That's the foundation for who that person is, right? So it can make them, if they have that change, when they're ready to change, if they veer off course, because like I said, that analogy of the boat, you have all these different tides and currents and they're pulling against you. So if they go off course and they make that change, the foundation was already laid. So we saw that with some of our kids. Some of our kids, they veered. And then we saw the people that they were hanging with, but it's like, but our kids had something that those kids didn't have, right? They had a different foundation to pull from so they could get out of it, right? Whereas some of those kids, they didn't have that, right? And then I see a question that came up, morality. Is morality separate from religion?
Yes.
Yeah, morality is, like I said, to me, this is my belief. My belief is that everybody is born with a conscience, and morality is ingrained into every human in their conscience. But I think that based on what that child goes through in life, I mean, unless they were just born and there was like some brain deficit or something like that, then they can't even help themselves, right? But if that's not the case, then usually what you'll see is, you have a child that was just abused. So then their moral compass got burned. It got burned out,
or not everyone's
burned out, right? So then that's kind of why they're off track, right? But they can get back to that. But morality, morality is totally separate from religion, right?
But I mean, a lot of abuse children never lose their moral compass.
But I think what happens is, you know what? I think that religion, and no matter what religion you believe in, right? This is not like a moral.
It helps define your morality.
It
isn't morality.
Right. I think it helps to define the morality, and I think it helps you to refine with a D your morality, right? Because it's like, look, there are certain codes and standards. Every religion is going to have certain codes or standards that you need to adhere to. So it's like, it's not, you just can't treat anybody any old type of way. It's like, you know what? Morality. So each one of those religions, for the most part, each religion has a moral compass attached to it. So it'll help you kind of get on track, so to speak, right? Morally.
Well, yeah. I mean, and culture, what nationality you're from, they all affect your morality. I mean, there's, I forgot there's like a really good word, but I'll call it code of conduct because I'm stuck in the corporate mindset right now. But like there's a code of conduct, and that's basically your morality. Whatever group you're associated with has a list of, here's standard operating procedures. Here's what's considered norm. Here's what's considered good. Here's what's considered bad. To me, it's whatever group you're associated with, and there's no right or wrong. I mean,
it really is.
You define a right or wrong, but it's not. No one is better than the other just based on it being. That made no sense.
At the core level, we're all equal. That's very true. So the saying is that sometimes people, basically, what I believe in, right? And I think that, like, it's not about religion as well, but it just, if you have the sense of self-worth, and I don't mean ego now, I don't mean ambitious, I don't mean any kind of bad stuff. I just mean that that you matter to someone and someone matter to you, right? So that life, you actually appreciate life. And when you appreciate life, when you know how to appreciate your life, you appreciate people's life as well, because you treat them by your own standards, But obviously, if somebody grew up, and unfortunately it did happen, that the person hasn't been shown what does mean to appreciate life, so which means that they don't appreciate their life because they haven't been they haven't been taught, so obviously they can't appreciate someone else's life, so it's not that they're bad people, they just have not learned how to do it, have not seen it, and that's why they sometimes become self-destructive as well. And obviously when you become self-destructive, perspective, your brain reacts completely differently because completely different chemicals in your brain being released, and you're driven by different hormones, and your behavior is also different because of this. Because if, for example, you know what does mean to value your life, right? If something happens, you will react, your behavior will be very, very different versus to the person who was, for example, abused or have not been loved, or have been always isolated, or didn't have enough friends in his or her childhood as well. It's going to be completely different.
But I mean, there's predispositions though based on genetics. I mean, there's scientific proof that there's things that are passed down through genetics, and some of that could be considered morality or not, but I mean, it's genetically coded, and you can still overcome it, but you have inclinations and whatever just by being human.
Proclivities. Yeah. That's good. I think it's still to me, it's mindset, right? It all goes back to your brain, right? It all goes back to what you believe in. Because somebody brought this up, Lois Carter. Take two siblings in the same abuse, you will have two different outcomes. Epigenetics makes it so, right? So it boils down to choices, right? It boils down to how somebody thinks. And so you have somebody that was, let's say you have two people and they're alcoholics, or their parents were alcoholics. Their parents were both alcoholics. And then you have two kids. One kid comes out and they're alcoholic. And they're like, well, of course I was an alcoholic. What else could I do? Like, mom and dad was an alcoholic. Of course I'm an alcoholic. It's their fault. And then you have the other kid and they're like, some doctor or whatever, right? Geneticist or whatever. And they're like, how did you do that? Well, mom and dad was an alcoholic. I needed to be the person to help the family. I needed to break that chain. So it's like, it's the mindset. So each one believes something differently, and then they both had different outcomes. And it didn't matter whether they were black or white or Christian or none of that. It don't even matter. It's like, it goes back to what's between your ears, right? What are you believing? What are you thinking?
Do you think?
Okay, tell us what's between our ears.
Huh?
I was going to go, hey, Nat, tell us what's between our ears. Well, there's the amygdala, and there's the limbic system, and there's the frontal cortex, and then the oblongata, and go ahead.
So let's go into good stuff, right? So I think we grilled you a lot on all kind of negative stuff, all sorts of like difficult stuff. But look into good stuff, So obviously, you have many companies, and Mark is going to tell me how many. You have many companies, 5, yay!
Mark says 5. I technically have 4 companies. I have 4.
Okay, so you have.
You're working on the 5th one though, so it's there.
Yeah,
Believe, conceive, believe, and achieve. I believe it's achieved. 5.
Amen, brother.
So let's go into successes, right? So is it easier now with every company, every new company, or every following company? Is it easier to achieve success, or it's not easier to achieve success? It's the same amount of difficulties.
If we're gonna say success by the world's terms, then I would say yes.
By your terms.
Yes, and the reason is because it's I'm trying to remember this word I learned in graduate school. It's not self-confidence. It started with a C. It was another C word.
Competence?
Self-assurance.
No, it's not competence, not self. But it'll come back to me. Either will. But the thing is this.
She said
because I believe who I believe I'm a success now, right? Yep. I really believe that because before I just had the internal belief.
Self-prophecy.
It is that, but it's something else. Oh man, this word's it'll come to me, right?
So Brother Mike will put it in the comments later when he thinks of it with the replay.
Yeah. I'm just gonna ask God. God, please help me remember what that word is, because He knows exactly what that word is. But anyway, so what happens is because I believe. So if you just have the thought in your mind, it's like I'm a winner. I'm a winner. I'm a winner. Okay, but you looking around, it's like no, that doesn't line up. You're not a winner, right? So you have to. It's auto-suggestion. You basically are programming your mind to believe that you are a winner, even though you're looking and everything says, no, you're a freaking loser. You keep telling yourself, and then eventually you start taking different actions, and then those actions bring you different results. And then you're believing this. And it's like, whoa, I am a winner. And I'm looking around and yes, I am a winner. Why? everything I touch, I'm winning. Everything I touch turns to gold. So now it's like, where before what stops people is, it's their mindset. Oh, I don't know if I can do it or that. And it's like, you're not going all out. You're kind of half doing it, or you're playing afraid. I'm a man of a billion backstories. Quick backstory. So one time when I was in the Navy, we were having PT, physical therapy, right? It's exercise, right? And we're playing Frisbee football. I don't know if you ever played Frisbee football.
Yes.
Mark played. So you, instead of a football, an American football, right? Not a soccer ball. You're throwing a Frisbee. So like you pass the ball to your teammate. You throw the Frisbee, they catch it, they run, and you try and tackle them and get, the Frisbee or whatnot. So I remember I went into this game and the thought in my mind was that I'm not gonna lose. That was my mindset. I'm not gonna lose. So as I'm playing, I would keep dropping the Frisbee. I'm like, how am I dropping this? I'm good. I'm very agile. I'm like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. And then like halfway, I got a realization. It's your mindset. You're not playing to win. You're playing to not lose. They're two different things. You're focused on losing and you keep losing. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I'm going to win. And then what happened? I'm throwing, I'm doing, it's like, wasn't dropping it anymore.
And so did you freeze in the middle of your Frisbee football and like, actually, I just got an insight,
I got it, right? So my point is this is like, so now that I'm starting companies, I don't play to not lose. I play to win. Actually, I play to dominate. Most people play to win. I play to dominate. It's like, nah, I'm not coming to play. And that's why, that's why I'm going to beat you. Because you're only playing to win. I'm playing to take the whole game.
Yeah.
I'm going to dominate. So it's easier for
psychologists who say that your brain, I'm not sure if it's true, and Matt will probably tell us, but that your brain cannot see the net. So whatever the subject is, so if it's not lose, you see lose. If it's not win, you still see win. So whatever that's what you focus on. So you can't, because it just totally skips the net. So
right. And that's what I call, so like now, like people have different terms. So for me, I call it the never give up mindset. It's like, you know what? You basically program yourself to where losing is not an option. You take everything. It's the way you look at it. Is it a loss? Oh, that was such a bad thing. No, you're looking at it wrong. So, I have this nonprofit. It's the ION Global Goodwill Ambassadors. And what it is, it's a godly angel investing global mentorship initiative, right? So where I'm helping people to like get on their feet and start their own companies. And I don't charge them any money. I foot all of that cost. I don't ask for a penny back, right? And that's by divine appointment only, right? So many people are asking, and it's like, okay, nope. God said that person. And each person is somebody that was basically, they tried to step out and the world just crashed them. Like they're about to lose everything. And then it's like, I come in and it's like, I got you. It's going to be okay. But the first thing that people always say is, oh, I need money. And I'm like, that's not what you need. So there's a sister I'm helping out in Bangladesh. And I remember our conversation, the first one, and she's like, no, Mike, I need money. And I'm like, no, sis, you don't need money. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I lost my job. I need money now. I'm like, no, that's not what you need. She's like, what do I need? You need a new mindset. You need a new mindset. You change your mindset, you change your money. Change your mindset, you change your money. Change your mindset, you change your money. So her mindset is changing now, right? So it really does go back to that, right? It's how you look at something. So the famous example is Honda. Like a lot of people don't realize it. The person that started Honda, I think his name was like Soichiro Honda. And he got famous for making a moped. It was called a Super Cub. It was a moped. And he got famous internationally for that because it was like excellent work. And then I think he was coming out with like either his new version of the Super Cub, or it was his first car. But what happened was it was during the World War. So we bombed. That's what America does sometimes. They bomb people. But anyway, they bombed them. They bombed the factory. And instead of him like breaking down and crying and all this stuff, he got excited. And his workers was like, well, I don't understand. Like, why are you excited? He said, because the Americans have given us a gift, right? They gave us a gift. It's the metal casings in the bombs that they drop. We're going to melt all that metal down. We're going to rebuild the factory. We're going to build this up. That's what he did. Never give up. The mindset. He did not see that as a failure or loss. Everybody else did. He's like, no, you don't get it. because in his mind, failure is not an option. His mind is constantly looking, how do I figure this? How do I do this? How do I figure it out? Boop, solution, got it. We're going to do this.
Yeah,
But
that's like my favorite. One of my favorite stories about the twins. They're both given like a massive pile of pony poop. And one's like, oh man, I got to clean up this pony poop. That sucks. This is the worst present ever. And the other one's like all excited looking around. And the dad's like, what's going on? He goes, well, there's this bunch of pony poop around. There's got to be a pony somewhere. So it's totally nonsense. Anyways, you can ask the last question because we need to wrap up. But
yes, last question is.
And thanks too.
How did the hour go fast?
I don't know myself.
We can have Michael part 2.
Yes, yeah, maybe actually we need to get back because we still need to ask you. I still have like plenty of questions about your companies. What do you do? How do you help world? Like all kind of stuff. So we'll have to get back to it. But last big question, so based on your let's ask this question, so based on your first 25 years of life, right? And all what you've learned through those 25 years of life, so what's this biggest lesson or life wisdom you can share with everyone? And longer than never give up, a bit longer than that.
You have to control your mind. That's it. Who like, I can't even say it. When you look at your life situations don't define you. What defines you is your thinking. That's what defines you.
Choices.
Like trying to copy somebody else, that's not going to define you. That's going to make you a cheap imitation of somebody else. But if you're original and you define your thinking, you get your thinking in order, you will take off. You'll take off. So that is the biggest thing I would say. Some people probably say, well, why, Christians out there listening, man, you should have said, try Jesus. Why didn't you say try Jesus? No, the biggest thing is get your mind together. Get your mind right.
Because now I can't emulate Brother Mike anymore. Darn it. I got to be my own person.
Yeah, so to answer your question, that's it. Get your mindset right. Because if your mind's not right, nothing else is going to be right. Okay. And it's ripples. What you do affects, we're all connected. What you do affects everybody else around you, right? So mind's important. Yeah.
That's very cool. True. So, Michael, thank you super much for being with us. I'm pretty sure we're going to be back for chapter 2.
Oh, no, we'll definitely have you back.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a great honor. It was an honor. And y'all know you can find me on LinkedIn, Michael M. Dillard. If you want to get some evangelistic messages, go on my Instagram account. I only use that for evangelism, which is also Michael M. Dillard. And there's no I.
I know. I messed up, okay? It's this finger, this errant finger typed in I. Your new name is Dillard, but that's why I call you Brother Mike. It's simpler.
Amen, brother. Amen. All right, man. Thank you so much. Love you guys too.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for being with us. That was great.
All the guests, thank you. And we'll see you next week, right? Next week. We're going to do this every week.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. All right. And we're going to go off, but we could still talk a little bit if you want. So see you later. That was Psych You In with Brother Mike, Michael Dillard, and Nat. Woo!
And the original Marky B.